Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Eons of Battle. This box right here is full of models that have been sitting in my garage for over a year. Apparently, I have not needed to touch any of these models in a year. I have a vague recollection of what is in this box, and it's probably horribly dusty, but I've been reorganizing my setup. I finally have enough bins that I think I have room for all of this stuff, and I just want to remind myself what is in here. So let's take a trip down memory lane and see some of the oldest models in my collection. Oh, interesting and dusty. A lot of Necrons, a lot of Gene Stealers, a lot of just stuff. Oh, but I already see some gems. This is a Mars Attacks Martian. Mantic years ago made a game for Mars Attacks, and they are the cutest little models. Oh, with the clear plastic dome. Oh, these guys are classic. I remember I painted these up. These were one of my first attempts to use Army Painter Speed Paint, first version, and I really liked them. They turned out great. I actually have a bunch more of these guys that I need to get painted up because they are absolutely fantastic. These guys. Wonder where the rest of them ended up. They're not in this box. There could be other boxes. I'm not sure, but this is the one I knew about. The Mars Attacks Martians. The what are these? The T100 or 101 Terminators. These guys. I remember there was a box at my local Ace Hardware. They have the models at Ace Hardware. Usually it's a lot of cars and airplanes and boats, but they had one weird movie tie-in set of 4, I think it might have been more than 4 Terminator dudes. They're like 70, maybe like 52 millimeters tall, kind of weak on the detail. And I remember forever ago making a video with these guys, testing out different types of metallic silver paint. And the conclusion was, after painting 4 of them up, it was all about the same. Not terribly interesting. The models are not terribly good, but these little guys. I always wonder what to do with stuff like this in my collection because it's not part of a game. It can't really be used in a game. They're not terrible, but I'm not gonna display them. So what do I, maybe that's how things end up in a box in my garage forever and ever and ever. Maybe this can go on like the eBay pile or, cause I don't wanna throw them away. I painted these guys, they're fun, but I don't know. They're not a usable model currently. Oh, but speaking of usable models, I hope the rest of them are in this pile somewhere. This is an old Space Marine Scout, and I actually built this guy for an old Games Workshop game called Lost Patrol. It's a dungeon crawler exploration game. It's really good if you change up Games Workshop's rules, because Games Workshop rules weren't very good. But you play as the scouts exploring a jungle infested with Tyranids, and the Tyranids win. The Tyranids win almost every single time because the scouts can only kill a Tyranid on a roll of a 6. I think they get 2 shots per turn, and they have to find the crashed escape pod. I don't know how they win the game when they find the crashed escape pod, because you'd think if there's a million Gene Stealers barreling at you and you get to the escape pod that's crashed, I guess they maybe hop in and take off and get off planets, but the picture on the tile is pretty destroyed. But anyway, it's just a game, but I built up a bunch of these guys because the Games Workshop version only comes with 4 normal scouts and the scout with the heavy bolter. But I wrote expansion rules to use the scout with the sniper rifle and the scout with the missile launcher to add a little bit of army building to the game, so that before the game starts, you kind of have to decide, maybe I want the rocket launcher for killing multiple Gene Stealers at a time, or maybe I want the sniper rifle for the more guaranteed kills. It definitely adds quite a few more layers to the game. And I don't know where my set ended up. Hopefully here, although I don't see any Gene Stealers, but really gotta play some Lost Patrol because it's a board game. It's a great little board game. It plays really quick, and I actually made the minis for it. Oh, but speaking of minis, this guy, he's dusty. This miniature right here, this is another mini that's not really part of a game, but I really love him, especially for the story behind him. This is a 3D printed Hamazaki salamander from the artist Cobra Mode, and I painted this sucker up live on camera. We used to stream on YouTube all the time, and I remember I painted this guy up on Halloween. I remember I made myself a big pot of spiked cider, and I painted this guy up in one painting session. I built this base with the rocks exploding out of the ground because the thought process was this guy's kind of like a video game character. And so, you're walking along and all of a sudden, boom, skeleton pops out of the ground and starts attacking you. I also used Games Workshop contrast paint on this guy because I was trying to see what the difference was between the Army Painter speed paint and the Games Workshop contrast paint. They're very similar products. I think the Games Workshop contrast paint is a little bit better. It dries a little bit more matte, but it dries really, really quickly. And so it's almost two different products for two different applications, even though it's a very similar application to tint what you already have into other shades. But yeah, Cobra Mode and their Hamazaki salamanders are absolutely fantastic. And this little miniature, I also put him on a wooden plinth, which is actually just a little bit of hardware store dowel. Yeah, this is a model that is only for display, but it's also really little, so I wouldn't feel bad about displaying this somewhere in my home. And just look at the energy. Look at the energy of this guy popping out of the ground. He's actually attached with a paper clip in his butt. The classic way to make something fly. The bulk of this pile looks like it is my Genestealer cult army. My Genestealer cult, I remember the Genestealer cult came out around 2015, and I was really, really excited. I bought multiple copies of Deathwatch Overkill, which was like the kind of board gamey thing they made to show off the new faction. It has one of my best painted miniatures in my collection, this Broodlord, but my normal rank and fire Genestealer cultists are a little bit sad looking. I tried to paint them like the box art, but the box art is really, really tricky paint job to pull off. This army kind of just needs a complete overhaul and to actually figure out what's in it, because I have no recollection of what actually makes up this army or if it's even playable. But I do love this Broodlord. Also, a miniature that was painted up live on camera back in the day. Ooh, I see a lot of oldies and goldies. This, speaking of Space Hulk, this is the Space Hulk Librarian in Terminator armor. This was used in a very, very old video, I think talking about my new airbrush setup, because at that time, I had just recently repaired all of my airbrushes so that they were all functioning. Since then, I have broken two of them, and one of them needs a really good cleaning, but this model was painted with only airbrush. Absolutely no paintbrush has touched this miniature, and it's okay. It's clearly airbrushed, but it looks decent. From a distance, you might accidentally think that this model was properly painted, but no, this model was 100% done with I think two different airbrushes, the Harder and Steinbeck Infinity CR Plus and the Badger Patriot 105. I almost want to try that again to see how much of a mini I can paint with the airbrush, because I usually work in cycles of sometimes I do a lot of airbrushing and then my airbrushes get dirty and clogged, and so I don't use them very much, but then I clean them, once again, use them all the time. Really, maybe I just need to be a little bit of a better airbrush parent, but this little guy. I really wish I had a proper copy of Space Hulk, because I own Space Hulk, but a bunch of the Terminators I converted and kit bashed into my Black Templar army. A bunch of the Genestealers I think are broken, and this guy is painted with only airbrush colors. Oh, let's see what other treasures lie in store. I can't believe I forgot all of these Necrons out in my garage. I guess I haven't been playing my Necrons a lot. This is a Necron spider. This is an old mini. This big old rock that is on this guy's base, this is actually a wood chip. I remember coming home from high school one day and kicking this wood chip because it was just laying in the road, kicking it all the way down the street, and then thinking, you know what? That's a pretty good wood chip. And so I attached it to this guy's base, and there it is sat for years and years and years. And it's not even that great a wood chip. It has a giant knot in it that makes it a dead giveaway that it's a wood chip and not a piece of rock. But I like it, and so it'll always exist on this Necron spider's base. Good old high school army. Ooh, but speaking of high school, one high school purchase is years ago, 2007, a company called Mongoose Publishing created a game for Starship Troopers, and I bought the starter sets. The game is now super defunct, although some of the molds exist with smaller miniature manufacturing companies, so it is possible to get some of the models for this game. And every now and then, boxes and boxes of the plastics actually show up on eBay. This was a game before its time. 2007, Games Workshop was still absolutely top dog. There was kind of nothing else even in the zone of being a full-on, full-scale miniature war game. If this game came out today, I think it would actually stay alive for at least a few years. I think this game literally only lasted 2 years, but they came out with a full range of miniatures, expansions, plastic kits, metal kits. It looks like a really, really cool game, and I would love to one day paint it up. I think I only have a small handful of the arachnids painted up, and none of the humans painted up, and there's almost no point, because what, am I gonna paint up this entire box and then play it one time and then put it all away? But it's just such an interesting piece of wargaming history that I might just have to do it. And Frank Darabont's Starship Troopers is one of my favorite movies, so I would like to have them all painted up. Look at how cool this thing is. This thing is great. I remember in college is when I actually managed to get all of these guys built and assembled. And I think this might be the only one that is finished being painted. But man, it would look really cool. A bunch of arachnids swarming across the world. Maybe on TTS, Tabletop Simulator, I'll try to play a game of this stuff and see if it's worth it to put together all probably 50 miniatures I have for this game. Ooh, and speaking of things that were a big ol' waste of time. Oh, where's the other one? It might not have been in that box. This is the classic Games Workshop one piece of plastic Orc Gretchen from the 2nd edition Warhammer 40,000 starter set. But obviously, it's not. It's huge. We got a 3D scanner, scanned up the little one, scaled it up, and then Nick 3D printed all of it. Nick 3D printed the big one, and then I painted it up. And the detail was really, really soft, but with painting, I was able to make it at least look like the original miniature. I guess it wasn't a waste of time because it's kind of cool. It's kind of a cool looking object, but holy cow, the amount of work it took to just get it all working this well, which means not that well. It is kind of a cool piece in my collection, a weird piece of wargaming history. And I almost want to, it was in a video, but it'd almost be fun to like take a bunch of pictures of this guy and post them on like Pinterest, just so that when people Google search, they'll randomly see this and be like, how does that even exist? It's kind of a meme, but yeah, that was a fun week of trying to figure that all out. Where's the original? I painted one big one and one little one. I wonder what happened to the little one. I think there was also a microscopic one, but I don't remember if I actually painted that or not. Ooh, I don't see it, but I do see something else. This guy! Look at this little mantis dude. This model reminds me of one just random day where I was really feeling down, just absolutely miserable. I don't remember why. And so I just grabbed this model out of the shelf and I painted him up in like an hour. And I love him. He was so much fun to paint. It was so much fun to just knock out a project. He's got his cute little iPad and his big old bug eyes. It completely turned my day around actually finishing this little miniature. So this is a really, really fun one to have in my collection. Ooh, I see my Daughters of Khaine Underworld's warband. I remember purchasing these models. I don't think we ever planned on playing Underworlds, but I bought these models and I painted them up. And it completely cured my desire to start a Daughters of Khaine army for Age of Sigmar because they are hard to paint. Holy cow, a lot of skin, a lot of tiny, tiny armor, a lot of tiny details. They're very, very nice looking models. And I'm a little bit lying because even though I don't want to paint Daughters of Khaine, I'm starting a Dark Eldar army and I really don't like the Games Workshop witches. They're okay, but they're really, really looking old. So I actually think I'm gonna replace my witches with the Daughters of Khaine models because they're kind of pretty much the same thing. In fact, they're both witches, essentially. But yeah, these models, although they're okay, and I'm okay with how I painted them, yeah, I remember they were an absolute slog of a painting project. And that's really good to know because sometimes you don't want to dive right into the deep end. If you're like starting an army or starting a warband, probably a good idea to start out with just painting up and finishing some of the rank and file. And then once you're done with the rank and file, kind of reevaluating. Did I actually enjoy doing that? And if you don't, you never have to do it again. But if you jump into the deep end and you bought, say, like an entire Daughters of Khaine start collecting, yeah, that's kind of a problem. This little Necron guy. Oh, and this little Necron guy. And there should be one more, I think. But I don't see him right now. Way back in the day, before we even had any idea of how to actually make YouTube videos, and arguably we still don't, we did a bunch of videos about painting up different color schemes of Necrons based on the Necron Codex. I remember these guys took so long to paint, and they're not even that fantastic. I remember we did a video of painting the color scheme, and then a video of painting the base, and then a video of painting the color scheme, and then a video of painting the base. And you know what? These would make for fine Necron armies. I think Necrons are a little bit like the Tyrannid, where there's a few colors that work really, really well, but then there are some other colors that kind of just make them look like fantasy toys. But yeah, these guys are an absolute blast from the past. I don't throw anything away, although I do lose things. So it's fun to see really, really old stuff. I don't own my first miniatures anymore. The first thing I ever bought for Warhammer 40k was a box of Necron death marks. And I remember I painted them up, and then I didn't like how I painted them up, so I painted them up again, and then I still didn't like how I painted them up, so then I made them red. And I do not know where they are. I have not seen them in years and years and years, but I still got these guys. Still got these guys from a really, really old video. There was a Goliath truck just sitting out there for a year. My Gene Stealer cult. My Gene Stealer cult army. It's a little bit of a mess. I don't think about it very often, but I do. The Goliath truck was one of the reasons why I actually was like, I need to buy into this faction right now. The trucks are so cool, and they don't even look that 40k. They look like something a little bit more out of Alien. I'm gonna have to dust you off and get you on the shelf looking pretty. The little plague guy. Oh, and it looks like you survived the garage. It looks like not a lot of paint has chipped off. I think this might have been one of the very first things I ever bought that wasn't for Warhammer 40,000. It's just a miniature I saw on Amazon, and so I ordered it, and it's a little plague doctor. And I think I since have looked this model up online. It's a Reaper miniature, and everybody paints it scary, like a plague doctor should be. But I don't know why, I just, for no particular reason, decided to go very kind of pastel and light in its color scheme, and I think it looks great. It's a happy little plague doctor with the plague bombs, with the little skulls painted on each bomb. And this was probably my first ever experiment with non-metallic metal, doing his little dagger. This little miniature. I really need some kind of a shelf for random one-off things that I absolutely love, but aren't actually for a war game. Because my wargaming miniatures, they go into bins or cases, or just hang out around if I use them all the time. Other things live in at least plastic totes in the house so that they don't get horribly dusty and grimy and moldy. I need like a shelf just for the things that I want to look at, but aren't necessarily needed on a day-to-day basis. Although, looking in this box, there are some things that really should not have been in that box. All of the Dreadnought arms look like they're in this box. That's just dumb. And that's why my Dreadnought collection is currently armless, so I'm gonna have to dust these off and actually get them onto the appropriate miniatures. Yeah, a lot of Gene Stealer cult, a little smattering of Space Marines. I remember this guy with the lightning claws was my original chapter master from back when lightning claws were good, and you could even take lightning claws on a chapter master. This guy has died so many times. I think I named him something, but I don't even remember. He is a very, very old Black Templar miniature for me. God, those power fists look ridiculous. And I can't believe his little eagle has never broken off after all of these years. Oh, and this model! Oh, it is a Wargame exclusive Tau resting sniper. I don't know what drew me to purchasing this miniature. Maybe I just really wanted to paint my very first Tau model. But yeah, this model was hilarious and incredibly tiny. It was a resin cast miniature. Really, really hard to put together. But yeah, it was kind of a fun little project. I bought other models from Wargames exclusive. I think I accidentally dropped one of them and it exploded. And I have a smattering of some chaos stuff too, but I have no idea where it ended up. It would not be in this box. I think it would be, I have a bin of random plastic bits. Maybe they're in there. But yeah, Wargames exclusive makes some really, really cool stuff. It looks like I might be getting to the end. It's a lot of Gene Stealer Cult, honestly. There he is, the Lil Grot. Oh, where's the big one? Lil Grot, Big Grot. Lil Grot, Big Grot. Ah, I'm so glad. They need to be displayed together. Otherwise, the joke doesn't even land. You need to see the little one with the big one. Ah. It's so good. It's so good and so ridiculous. Oh, the details are so incredibly soft on the big one. And the little one too, really, if we're being honest. Is there anything? Oh, here is a scout. I've been looking for you. I'm sure that is going to be a lot of what's in this box. Some intercessors, who cares? Oh, are the rest of them in here? My original 2018 Warhammer 40,000 kill team. I built these guys up. In the original kill team 2018, you could actually bring any miniature in the game with any upgrades you want. You just purchased everything with points. And so I made a squad of, I think technically these would be Raptors, but really they're just reasonable Marines. Green and with a little bit of yellow accent, wearing actual camouflage armor, standing on kind of foresty bases. I worked really, really hard to get these guys really, really, really spicy. And then it turns out that all of the things that I put on these guys are the worst options in the game. I don't think they ever won or even did well in a game of Kill Team 2018. Absolutely terrible, but a really, really cool kill team. I wonder, because now there's so many Space Marine kill teams. I wonder if I could actually bring them back in Kill Team 2022 and just do some count ases for other things. I don't think there's any primary Space Marine that can carry a plasma gun, but oh, these guys, they're so dusty. You know, it kind of makes sense that I never really cracked open this box for well over a year. I don't play my Necrons or Gene Stealers nearly as much as I play my Orcs and Space Marines, but you know what? Maybe it's time for that to change. If only I had some really cool terrain. Maybe the terrain on my Patreon. Over there, we have a brand new set of terrain every single month. This month, we have the Ruined Temple, a collection of walls, blocks, and decorations that allow you to build the chaotic temple of your dreams. This is kind of a box of junk. Really, if I'm being honest, a couple of these models I need to dust off and get into their appropriate collections, but really, it is some of the oldest stuff in my collection that is kind of, a lot of it has been usurped or changed into a little bit more modern plastics, but there were some gems here. A lot of it is just random garbage that means a lot to me. So I hope you've enjoyed this trip down memory lane. Thanks for watching.